Alright, in this video, I want to share with you the truth on enlightenment. Wait, come on, buddy. Like, the truth on enlightenment? Let's say, like, who even really knows what the truth is? Now, I'm actually editing this video, and I just realized that I kind of left out something that I really wanted to kind of hammer down, and it's understanding that anybody who's been enlightened, or I guess who's attained that level of consciousness, the things that they say, it's not so much about what they say, but it's kind of about like what they don't say. And that's why I think that the most powerful realization when it comes to enlightenment is understanding that it's not so much about attaining a new perspective as it is about letting go of the perspectives that we already have. Kind of letting go of the identity of what our ego tries to so desperately claim onto or like latch onto. So with that being said, the idea of truth actually is more subjective because it really depends upon the person that's actually thinking it, and then understanding that that belief is being reflected back to them. So enlightenment, and I'll explain that more in this video, is more about the idea of letting go of the perspectives that we learned maybe through social conditioning or growing up, and getting back to that natural set point of when we're born. Of course, most of us don't remember that, but the idea is that when we do that, we actually reset ourselves to a place to where we're able to be that childlike mentality, curious of our environment, admitting that we don't really know anything. The ego wants to know, and when we transcend the ego into samadhi or different levels of enlightenment, the idea is that we drop that identification of form, we drop the labels, and we admit that we really don't know anything. So with that being said, let's get back to the video. I just wanted to clarify that real quick. But nonetheless, I see a very common misconception a lot when it comes to this idea of enlightenment. It always seems to be something that's kind of over there that we need to try to attain at some level. And what I want to encourage you to understand is this fundamental inner realization that I've had about enlightenment, and really just about the deepening of our level of consciousness. Now, I had an awakening experience, I guess you could fundamentally call it, like 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, I began meditating, and through meditation of a couple weeks of doing it, it profoundly changed my sensory perceptions. I remember that shortly after meditating, and a little bit of my story, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I used to have ADHD, and that once I began, I took Adderall, which is the prescription drug they give. Then what happened was I decided I wanted to learn my own way of balancing out my energy, so that have the negative side effects of Adderall. Came across meditation, started doing it, and it completely changed my energy. I became much more grounded, and from that point, it ultimately allowed me to know a lot more about what I want to do in life. Now, with that being said, what I learned was that through meditation, it changed my natural set point. So before, I felt maybe kind of content, a little bit less than content, more anxiety, and I would go about like this. I'd go ups and downs, and I had waves of emotions. Then what happened is I started meditating, and shortly, maybe a week or two, I started to feel better majority of the time. It was like, as my mind would calm down, my emotion and well-being would go up. So I learned how to just observe the moment, observe the thoughts in my mind, and it completely shifted my energy. Now, another part of this was I became much more vivid in my experience. Like, I remember that where I worked at the time, I worked at Nordstrom's in salon shoes, so it was like a sales commission job where I was selling like designer shoes. I remember that I was walking around and I was touching everything, and everything felt sharper. Like, the heels would feel sharper. I remember that the textures were different. Like, everything just felt different. And it felt more vivid. It felt like I was having a more vivid type experience. And what really happened during that time is I really realized the difference of the correlation between our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and the experiences that we get in our life. So I started to see that kind of blending together, and how my beliefs were creating the kind of experiences that I was having. So it's almost like I realized that reality is a reflection of my internal state of being and my internal ways of the way I identified myself to be. Now, with that being said, that was what we call, I guess, awakening. And enlightenment isn't so much something that's out there that we need to achieve. It is something that is already within us right now. It is a realization, not something that we attain. Now, the reason I say this, and I'm going to use this analogy because I think it illustrates the point well, is I was at the gym the other day and somebody was asking somebody how they get abs, like how they get their abs looking a certain way. And what this person said is that you already have abs. It's not that you need to figure out how to get abs. Everyone has abs. It's about understanding that if we change our diet and we get rid of the fat that is over the abs, that then we can actually see the abs and then we can build up the abs, but they are already there. In the same way, we already are enlightened. When we are born, I believe that we are enlightened. What happens is we go through certain experiences, we could call those reference experiences, that begin to tailor and shape the way that we think. That the more that we become identified with our thoughts growing up, the more that we begin to kind of distance ourselves from that natural feeling of enlightenment, but that then what the key is that then almost just like taking off the layers of what we think to be true, taking off the layers of the thoughts that we're constantly identified with. And as we begin to drop those layers, almost like layers of clothes that we put on, like as we're growing up, we're naked, we're enlightened, and then what happens is we begin to put on these clothes as we get older, beliefs maybe that we attained from our parents. So maybe our parents are like, oh, this is the way the world is. We put on that layer of clothes. Then we go through our life and we experience, an experience with like somebody that we get into a fight with. We put on another layer of clothes thinking that that's natural to be in that state. And then we keep going through layers and layers. And enlightenment really is about realizing that we are already enlightened. All we have to do is take off those burdened clothes, take off those layers that are kind of allowing us to not feel that level of enlightenment, and knowing that we've already had it because it's a part of who we are. It's about detaching from labels, detaching from ideologies. That's why most people that are enlightened say the key is to know thyself, to know who we are, to not be identified with those layers of clothes and thinking that that is who we are. So understand that anything and anytime we are trying to attain something else, we are setting it outside of from who we are. Even if your goal is to make a certain amount of money or to have a certain career or whatever it is, realizing that we can be that right now in this moment by identifying with the characteristics of whatever that is key to actually getting over there, which over there really doesn't exist. It comes from an internal perpetuation of energy. So the key to this is understanding that we do not need to attain anything other than us understanding and realizing that we are 100% whole and complete right now in this moment. That when we come from that frame, we allow ourselves to then observe the thoughts that we have, to then take off those layers of clothes. And as we begin to take off those layers of clothes, we begin to become more and more who we really are, to become more naked in a way, and more in that energy of being enlightened. When I had my awakening experience, what I believe that was I took off probably 70% of the clothes that I had on. 70% of the layers that I thought identified myself as to who I was. I began to see things more from a point of view of understanding why it is the way that it is. And from that point, I'm then able to change myself from the inside out because I am aware of what that is. So remember, you are already enlightened. All you have to do is drop the labels, drop the identities of who you think you are, drop the limiting beliefs that you have, take off the clothes that are burdening you and preventing you from actually just feeling free to be who you are. Know that that's who you are. You do not need to attain anything separate from who you are, and having that realization makes you understand that it's more about letting go than it is about attaining or putting anything on. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, share it if you found it of value, and I'll see you guys on the next vid. Alright, peace. Much love.